Sorry for the teacher voice earlier. That's not my usual role, but it's been a challenge, an interesting morning. TV news check. We all come from print. So when you try to get us to live stream, it gets really interesting. So do help me welcome Lior Metzer from Avid, our title sponsor. We're going to be talking about news production in the cloud, a roadmap for 2022 and beyond. I have to say, Lior, last year when the whole thing hit, I guess it was May, I was talking to one of the senior engineers in the industry, and he said, Avid pivoted really well, and they've been helping us get what we need. So that's a congratulations, I think. TV engineers know their future's in the cloud. They don't know how to get there necessarily. And Avid has been playing a pivotal role since last year, helping clients transform their production to remote workflows. Lior Metzer, here with me, is Senior Vice President and General Manager of Media Platform and Cloud Solutions at Avid. He leads the strategy to further expand and grow Avid's enterprise media platform portfolio and its overall cloud and SaaS business. He previously served, I think he mentioned before, as Chief Technology Officer for IoT at Akamai. So welcome, Lior.
Thank you, Kathy. Great to be here.
Yeah, so over these 20 months, what have you been learning as you've been helping those clients pivot?
Oh, it's been an absolutely fascinating time to join. Really, COVID accelerated everything. We brought in deliverables, we scaled, we saw business models transform. We've been sort of experimenting and playing with cloud for several years. And working with a lot of the industry's sort of leading companies to do proof of concepts, to do pilots. And really COVID took a lot of those things which were at that stage and really we made them GA sort of earlier in the plan to enable that very rapid shift versus the gradual shift that we expected pre-COVID to move to remote workflows. And I can give you some examples. We have an edit on demand solution where any editor can go in and without a powerful machine, with just a basic laptop, can go in and get the power of a cloud hosted machine with as much power as they really need and do everything that they were used to doing in an editing room or in a post-production facility and just do it remotely. Storage sort of moved with that. We've had customers that needed very rapid expansion and the ability to sort of spin up, spin down very elastically. Some examples are A&E, another example is France TV. And with our solution, they could be up in an hour, maybe a little bit longer to introduce all the plugins they were used to, and just immediately continue their work, including some innovative things like how do you do sort of over-the-shoulder workflows. So a lot of those technologies, because we had the soak time with real use cases, with, in some cases, the majority of users coming from remote, really got accelerated, and it was a great learning experience for us and a great forcing function, I'll say, to get us there quickly, and obviously also in news production. I've got more examples. So it's really interesting because sort of everybody has their notion of migrating to the cloud in some way. On the flip side, there's a lot of investment that's gone into newsroom infrastructure and the media infrastructure. That's been on the CapEx budget. So how do you sort of marry those two together? There's also a varying level of trust in cloud or in even putting something on a VM in a cloud, not even true SaaS. It's about connectivity. So if you look at, last week there was an AWS outage. Right? And about 6 weeks ago, there was an Azure outage, give or take. And if you're fully reliant on the cloud, and you have one of those outages, you could go down for a few hours, which is completely unacceptable. On the flip side, it doesn't scale to bring in sometimes 70–80% of your users to a VPN in, or even through enterprise access, it can scale a little more. So everybody really is on that dilemma, and I would say every customer is in a different point on that journey. And what we've learned is we need to map and adjust our pace to the pace of our customers. And really, for many customers, the best way to do it is really sort of to expand into cloud as a first step. So as you increase capacity, increase functionality, you take your first step into cloud, sort of keeping one foot on the ground. And then over time, as you build trust, you build experience, you sort of harden it, you can move potentially to full sort of function and feature in the cloud. And that's been a really accelerated thing, a lot because of the pandemic and the sudden shift to so much remote work.
So you have to have a backup cloud, it sounds like.
You have to have a backup cloud. You many times have multiple instances that sync between them in real time. So just in case something fails, you can still stay on air. You can still continue from where you dropped off. I would say sort of disaster recovery and sync solutions are definitely taking front and center stage now. It's just IT departments are really busy at getting that going in a much faster pace than they thought originally. On the flip side, remote production, some of those features, I would say some of parts of that value chain have become more centralized. So you don't need to take as many things out to the field. If you're in news today, and it's interesting because, in the pandemic, there was so much Zoom and so much remote connectivity that some audiences have become accustomed to actually a lower quality than pre the pandemic. It's okay to see somebody being interviewed, and sometimes because of their connection or because of their camera, it looks like SD. It doesn't even look like HD. It's coming across as HD. It doesn't even look like HD. And that's become acceptable. But what that's opened up is that, a reporter can go out to the field today without a crew of lighting, sound, etc. They can go out with just a high-end iPhone or Samsung device with a really good camera, with a backpack that connects, and become fully independent. Which makes them a lot more nimble, makes them a lot more agile. And it's that consumer acceptance of that kind of transmission that COVID, I think, helped accelerate, that's opened up to those new ways of working.
What about news workflow? Things like story-centric workflow, all those buzzwords, what's happening there?
So definitely story-centric workflows have definitely also become more front and center. And also just sort of I would say, sort of the notion of any input to any output. So everybody publishes to social, but sources for news don't have to be just journalists now. That's always been the case. So everything I say was not really binary, non-existent before existent now, but it's been accelerated that you can have more sources of input. And I think kind of going forward, you'll see social workflows and broadcast workflows probably merge, where one will feed the other, and there won't be as clear a distinction as there is today. And story-centric workflows being a big part of that.
You mentioned DR. What about ransomware attacks, which are a giant concern?
So yes, so ransomware attacks obviously a giant concern, and everybody here has probably read about the Sinclair ransomware attack, and I heard of another one just recently. So I would say security is definitely front. So that goes a bit to disaster recovery and sync. And if you do have that kind of attack, where are you taking your production to? And it can be one of your other facilities, or it can really be a cloud facility. So for example, one of the things you could potentially do if you have a ransomware attack is have a sort of instant production facility in the cloud that you can spin up really quickly, which just gives you continuity while you kind of sort out the ransomware attack, and gives you maybe not full feature and functionality, but at least some of it. Until you can sort that out. That's definitely one of the things that we're working on as well. And we've helped some of our customers who have faced that. And I will say that, it kind of opens up the door to how important is security. Mm-hmm. And, security, particularly when moving to cloud, is critically important. And, we're secure by design, the way we build our products, as I'm sure many of you are. But we also, use things which are not necessarily the full SaaS word. So, we still have isolation of systems, for example, because that's a higher level of security by design than doing sort of full SaaS multi-tenant. And we definitely harden our systems a lot to be able to prevent those attacks.
Okay. So I guess if you have something in the cloud, you can perhaps, or do you just put your DR in the cloud and as a first step, it sounds like? Just to make sure I'm clear on that.
Yes, definitely DR in the cloud is one step, and B is you can use sort of DR as a sort of central facility, a central place where all your on-prem locations sync to.
I see.
So, yeah.
I should ask you about changing commercial models, things like SaaS, OpEx, CapEx to OpEx. Yep. What are you hearing? Are your customers ready for that? Are you ready for that?
So, it's been, as I mentioned, we've accelerated our subscription. And we've seen a really strong uptick and really strong acceptance by the market of that. As you move to SaaS, you do move from that CapEx to OpEx budget. And, some customers have a longer cycle. You need to give them a year and a half notice because of the planning cycle. But I would say as a generalization, very well accepted, very well understood. It's interesting, most companies, whether they realize it or not, have moved 40, 50, 60, 80% of their IT to the cloud anyway. But they don't necessarily correlate it to other parts of their business. So it's actually very acceptable if you go by way of sort of the finance organization. But it also changes the products themselves. So, as we move to sort of subscription, more of our products are going to move to be software-based and COTS versus sort of integrated intelligent hardware. An example of that is our graphics business, which we've moved to be software and COTS. We're still supporting, obviously, everything we have, but from being just purely integrated solutions.
And so, briefly, how does a subscription relationship benefit the customers?
So the subscription benefits in a few ways. First of all, we didn't just take exactly what we had and move it to subscription. We created new bundles, which are more holistic, so that you wouldn't have to buy lots of discrete solutions, but rather you get a subscription package, and it's kind of right-sized for your organization overall. So that's one thing. We changed how we package it. Number two is you get repeated updates, and as long as you're subscribed, you get this endless series of updates. And then the third thing is it kind of makes you more future-proof, because the jump to move into that workflow being in the cloud is now smaller, because you're used to consuming it in the way you would consume it once in the cloud. So you've taken sort of one step in your business model and how you budget it.
Okay. I think we're out of time. I want to thank you, Lior Netzer, who's Senior Vice President and General Manager of Media Platform and Cloud Solutions at Avid. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, audience.